All right, coach, we can go ahead whenever you're ready.
All right, thanks, Charlie. Yeah, it's good to see you guys. As I thought, kind of coming up here today and visiting a little bit, measuring growth as a football team, it isn't that easy. Not like when we were kids and you could make a line on the wall, measure it again, you got taller, you're fired up. But as a team, I think division games help on that because it does give you some spots for measurement. And then, from our team now to our team, 7 or 8 weeks ago, I'll give you two areas that I thought were growing. I thought one of them is the turnover margin and a mindfulness for the ball and taking care of it. And then defensively, having the ability to knock it out and go. So I thought, we're growing in that space. And the second spot that I thought we're growing is these winning time moments. A 2 minute and a 4 minute. So I thought in yesterday's game, the 2 minute at the end of the half specifically, De'Ami Brown, converting a long third down, and then maybe 10 or 11 seconds the ball to Terry at the end of the half with no timeouts. And that scenario has to be either, in the end zone or out of bounds. And then being able to close out the game and not give the ball back to New York at the end. So those are some moments from here to here. And that's usually what I'm looking for to find ways to how we're going to grow. And a lot of that honestly comes back to Tell the Truth Monday and learning our lessons, how they apply to us. And no question about it, we're grateful for the wins, but we're not ever blinded by them. Making sure there's plenty of stuff to get better at and dig in and go for it again. And we'll certainly do that, each and every time. So that's what I was thinking about, where we're growing, how we're going to improve, and we've got to stay on this mark and right in that pocket of getting better. So glad to get rocking with you guys and open it up.
All right, Kyle, go ahead.
Hey, Dan, what makes this run game so tough to defend?
Probably the versatility of it, John. There's gap schemes, there's zone schemes, and then defending us is really all 11, as the quarterback has a factor in this too, on plays that could be, designed option plays coming out of it, whether it's a design run to run or a design run that turns into a pass. And so I think those are the big ones. The RPO is a form of an option different than a zone read where it's run to run. The RPO is basically the same thing, just it's just an option, and I can throw it if this look is there. So I think those are some of the significant parts of it, John, where it's all 11. You have to be able to defend the quarterback runs, and then mixing in pullers and gap schemes with it. It's a lot.
And then you brought up the success in the last, going into the half, even at the end of games. Why do you feel you guys are good in those moments?
I think the team puts in the work, number one, in those spots. We work at it a lot. I like the poise of the group into those spots. If, like, for instance, on Saturday, we had one that we didn't like, started it again. And so we don't just allow them to slide if we don't like what it is. And we hit them again and we hit them again. So that's a good standard that we've established, John, that we don't look past it when something's not right. And let's hit it again and make sure it gets right.
Thank you.
Nikki.
Hi, Dan. Jeremy Chin has played really well over these last couple of games. What has been working so well with him, and why does he fit so well, I guess, with this group and this game?
Yeah, I really feel the confidence has been growing, Nikki. I think you've absolutely nailed it. I love seeing in game the communication with he and with Quan, what they're seeing and how they're able to express that to one another. That's a big deal. He's worked really hard on the man-to-man side of things, whether that's pre-practice with Tommy Donatello or post-practice. You see the work, that he puts into that spot. But I thought the open field tackle on the screen that came all the way back and the man-to-man on the tight end, those were some plays that really stood out to me. And I thought yesterday's game was probably his best so far.
And then you have a lot of guys who have sort of revived their careers here with Eckler. I mean, Chin is playing more like he did a few years ago. Ertz is playing well. What does that say about the team and what these guys are doing now with this group?
I really think it speaks to the players about their willingness to kind of go to that space to get better and dig in for it. And one of the things from the coaching side here, we want to make sure we can feature the players of the things they do best, and then find those roles of how we do that. And it does take us learning who the player is, and for them to so clearly demonstrate, the practice reps and in games that they express who they are makes it easier for the coaches also to know how to feature them as well.
Ben.
Hey Dan, this is
Before you
obviously
go, Ben, love the support of your team there, Nikki. They're rolling in strong for you. I like it.
the last. Hey Dan, obviously this is the last time we'll talk to you before the deadline. You've gone through this over the years yourself. Obviously, I get that Adam is going to be his call on what to do, but how does that work for you and the coaching staff? Do you talk to all of your staff to get a feel for what they think they might make sense or ways to help? And how is this process with Adam different than perhaps ones you've gone through before?
I think first things first, like the competition part of it, Ben, you'll never stop backing off of that. If there's ways to do things, to compete, to find it, you go. But I would say really for Adam and his staff, it would go to layers. So obviously they would look at it, and if things got serious, then you take the next step. Showing some of that tape, how would you feature some so you have all the information before you would make a trade? So a couple of like, okay, you've hit the first marker to go to the next step. Hey, would you look at these guys and give us an evaluation? So it's a very clear process, from Adam and his team, and one that makes it very easy to follow because you don't have to chase any speculation. He would give us any updates. Hey, I think you should take a look at this person, and so on and so forth.
And then in terms of like the specific moment in time, you guys didn't use Emmanuel Forbes in the game yesterday. I don't know what that means for if it was a game plan or just where he's kind of at with you guys. You also have a little bit banged up on defensive line in general. Or those areas that perhaps warrant a little more attention, whether it is to make a trade or just finding some more help along the way here?
Yeah, it was nothing, past like for Emmanuel, nothing wrong in that spot. So it's just how the game played out yesterday, Ben. It wasn't by design or any of those things. So he had played the week before and even more plays prior to that. So nothing along those lines. And as it goes for D line or any of the spots, if there was, like I said, a way to compete to do things, we would look into it. But our team's growing stronger, and even some of the guys that had been banged up are starting to recapture that. And so it's been great to have Jordan McGee back out there and FA back, coming back there off their stints from not being able to help so far.
Thanks.
Sam.
Hey Dan, what did you see from the run defense on tape, and how can you guys improve in that area?
Yeah, I thought number one, I thought the quarterback runs of him being able to circle the defense, Sam, was a big deal. And one of them may have been a 24 yards or significant explosive run. Um, and then past that, I didn't feel like the tackling was off base, but the explosive ones are the ones that can really change the course of the game. And we had one against Chicago, and then the explosive run from yesterday. And you don't get to say, except for this and this, it was on point. So I think more than anything, making sure whatever the look is, whatever the run is, that you're able to nail that piece down. And so that's where I thought, we missed the mark in this game.
Where does that winning time messaging come from? Is this something you've used before, and how do you make that concrete for the guys and really embed it in their heads?
We try to keep it as relevant as we can. So there's usually maybe 3 times, 4 times a week, Sam, that we do something that may come up. So could be in a walkthrough on a Wednesday, Thursday, usually includes some type of 2 minute at the end of the game. We do some more on Friday at the end of practice, and then Saturday some more. So much like you'd have a practice scripted that has offensive periods, defensive periods, special teams, we also weave in those winning time moments. 6 seconds with no timeouts, 12 seconds with a timeout, a 2 minute at the end of the game where you have to kick a field goal, a 2 minute at the end of the game where you're down eight. So those are ones that we spend a lot of time on. Might be a scenario where you onside kicks, Hail Mary throws, defending them, running them. So there's a long list of things to work through, and you can't work through every single one every week, but you do keep it as part of the rotation to say, if this comes up, what are we going to do? If this comes up, and we love studying each week what happens around the league. And Dave Gardy shows a lot of those clips Friday that also include officiating. What is our crew that we're playing against? What tendencies might they have? What are some things that we saw around the league that are really important? And that's where we just try to teach, man, as much as we can.
Scott.
Hi, Dan. Over the last several weeks, the players and their answers to a lot of our questions, the word brotherhood comes up almost all the time. You use the word brotherhood, and I'm curious because it's a word, but there's a lot of layers to that word brotherhood. Can you kind of expand on that? What is brotherhood in the commander's locker room?
Yeah, it would have to be, Scott, that the ability to play for something bigger than yourself and knowing that your skills can get you to a certain level, but there's a whole nother spot to tap into if you're doing it for the guy who's right next to you. And a lot of people would say, well, that's not possible in pro ball. And I would tend to disagree with them, and all the connection that can happen. It's really important, but you have to also live that every day. It's not something that just comes up on a Sunday. It's all the way through the week, the practicing, the communication, and there's a lot of examples that I see, Scott, during the week. I saw it as an example this week with Chris Rodriguez following an example of J-Mac, and he's helped him get better in his preparation, and that's his way of paying it forward to the next one. That's brotherhood. Chris was ready to step in and play over the last month. He's been preparing. He saw an example of what that looked like from a teammate and kept him going into that space. So there's small examples like that that feed into it. And I see random acts of brotherhood on a regular basis here, but you do have to watch for it. You have to acknowledge it and make sure when those moments happen that you talk about it.
Along those words of brotherhood is chemistry. And this team has that, right? They're playing well, everybody's on the same page. So when it comes to the trade deadline, how do you find that balance of, hey, this group has chemistry, they're all on the same page. Why do you want to disrupt that by maybe bringing in another individual? What is that balance?
At the core of the program, it's led through competition and trying to compete to become as good as we can be. And so everybody's fully aware of that as well. All decisions aren't easy. You have to find out the balance and what's best for the team, but that's really where it starts. What's best for the team, Scott? If you stay true to that, even in the most difficult of questions or chemistry as you're speaking towards, you always keep that in mind. So it's a factor for sure, but at the end of it, it's still about competing.
Thank you.
Andy.
Hey there, good afternoon, Coach. I know it can never be easy to have conversations, probably like the one you had yesterday with Brian Robertson Jr., when you all determined that he would be inactive for the game. So, kind of what goes into your preparation in having that conversation with the player?
You're right, Candy, and it's not easy. And the kind of the phrase I told him yesterday, we're going to choose the more difficult right over the easier wrong. And there's a lot of season for him to play. And when you have an injury, to your lower body as a running back, that's the locomotive, man, whether it's calf or quads or hamstrings or glute, like that's what makes you unique. And if you're feeling that signal that's just not coming back as quickly as we thought it would, then that's the more difficult right. And we didn't want to put him into a space that he could be vulnerable to get it, injured. And we thought if that's the smart play here, is even though it's not the easy one.
And right now, the team is sitting at 7-2, and with that comes your world-class coaching staff. Is how the coaching staff has been phrased since everyone came together earlier this calendar year. So, what can you say about your coaching staff and what they've done to work together to get the team to 7-2?
Yeah, I think I'll speak back to maybe a word that Scott had just brought up. It's brotherhood. And there's a space for that too, to be the best functioning staff that we can. And that's a huge goal to take on. They can be the best functioning staff in the NFL. There has a lot of support and a lot of communication with one another. And just like in a locker room with a team, a lot of alphas who have a lot of opinion. Well, it's no different on a coaching staff. And so finding that narrative together, doing what's best for the team. And those are things that we talk about. If we're looking from the players, then that also we have to be that. And these players are like, they get it. and they've been BS'd a lot, Candy, through their careers by coming up, high school, recruiting, et cetera. So like they have a pretty good BS filter and they know when somebody's not real and honest. And if you can make players better, that's a really powerful thing. And that is right at the core of what we do as a coaching staff to say, can Dan Quinn or Cliff Kingsbury or Joe Witt or Larry Izzo, Brian Johnson, can they make me better? And it takes time to prove that, and earn trust with one another. But that's what I'm looking for from that group to never back off of that. And the coaches are a very big piece to this connection.
Thanks, Coach.
All right. Have a good day.
JP.
Hey, Dan, you've been involved in the NFL for a number of years. What has changed around the league that the trade deadline has become such a big event now when it used to just really be pretty quiet and sleepy?
Yeah, good point. 24/7 sports news cycles, man. I don't know, JP. It's a good question. We've moved it back a week. I don't feel like it's as big a shift in that as maybe I thought it might. To see, okay, you're not seeing like a team dump players and as you see, a narrative in some other sports. But what I do see and feel is maybe, teams really competing, thinking our league is built so closely and designed with parity in mind. So if you can make a move to change your roster or think this player would really add value, I think, Sam, that's the biggest difference. What are we seeing that could be a slight shift, a slight advantage for one team and being aggressive into that spot?
Donna.
Thanks.
Hi, Coach. Could you talk a little bit on the offensive line? Have they surprised you at this point, 9 games in, of how they're just clicking and gelling together?
I'm not going to use surprise. I may shake my head with a smile and say that's it because I've loved the work ethic and the connection at that position, their ability to communicate to one another. If you had been on the sideline and you could have heard Allegretti the way he's communicating to his left to Coleman and to his right to Biotic, uh, he brings that kind of energy and communication. You can't help but get better playing next to somebody like that. So we make it challenging run game, pass protection, play passes. So there's a lot on the guys and then throw a tempo and an upspeed fashion to that. They're tough, they're competitive, they really can finish. So to see them really kind of raising their level together, Donna, I think that's what makes a good offensive line good. It's not one player, but when you're good as a group. And that kind of toughness and finish that they're displaying, it's a big deal because, like yesterday, to leave a game against the team that's leading in sacks and have good protection, and I thought it was smart game plan by Cliff and the guys, knowing when to chip and why to do that based on who the opponent is. It's not always easy to do that, but to see those guys staying connected and doing it, that was cool.
Could you talk a little bit on Brandon Coleman, because he was just getting back and he went up against one of the best defensive players and he really just dominated there too. He really played well on Sunday. Could you talk a little bit on him being back?
Yes, and you guys have heard us in the excitement with Brandon. So early on, it made sense where there was, some splitting of time and where he missed time to gain those reps back and gain confidence to do that. He's very rarely repeats the same mistake. And I think that's the mark of a player that can have self-awareness to how to get better. And he really trusts that work that he puts in to go. And you'll see him before practice. You'll see him after practice to get back. So last week, missing the game gives you perspective. What do I need to hit on? And then going into this one with extra reps to go. I love that he had, right to the right of him of Allegretti communicating with him the entire time. So good to see him get all the reps and really, finish it out.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Sorry, we're crunched for time, so we're gonna end here. Thanks, Coach.
Come on, Charlie. All right. You guys
Sorry.
have a good one.
See ya.